Welcome back, Nerdy Bunch, Nerdie Sports audience. We are back to review the first 5 days of the NBA playoffs. It's currently April 29th, I want to say. Right at the edge.
Close.
It is. What was that?
You're close. It's 24th. You only lost by almost a week.
Oh, man. I'm so bad with dates. I really am. I
That's
was like, it's
okay.
definitely like close. Oh, no. That's next week. Next
I got
Tuesday.
almost a whole week left, so
All right. All right. All right.
that's
But you
okay.
know what? That's the fun of it, right? So we are April 24th. We're already 5 days through. We're waiting on the NFL draft tonight. We're waiting on game 3 with the Knicks Pistons series, game 3 with the Nuggets Clippers series, my favorite
Yeah.
series. Joining me as always is my man Scotty. How you doing, Scotty?
Good. Getting over a little cold, so missed last week, but excited because every team got exactly 2 games. I think it's nice. It gives you a little bigger picture compared to the just a prisoner moment game one. I think it's a good time to really take that first review of the first round.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. I mean, we got 2 games in. Game 1 sometimes is a feel it out series. That's what I kind of
Exactly.
felt like with the Lakers Timberwolves. JJ Redick was really
Uh,
pissed off at their aggression and the inability to really like bring their level up. They were a team obviously burning on Luca. I guess we could start there. Why not? Bernie on Luca, obviously one of the best players in the game. Right now, one of my top performers. I was going through like
yeah.
figuring out who do I think is the top performer. I was thinking Kawhi. Kawhi was definitely up there. Jalen Brunson's up there. Crazy enough, Giannis has been up there. Sadly, he doesn't have
Okay.
anybody else on his team.
Yeah.
But let's stick with the Lakers specifically.
Okay.
So obviously, LeBron takes a while to get players acclimated to his style of play. Luca is a ball dominant player himself. I felt like the beginning of the regular season was a feel it out. Do you feel after 2 games better or worse about them versus the Timberwolves specifically?
I feel better. I mean, obviously you don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but you lose the first game, it's gonna make you pull back a little bit. I was pretty big on the Lakers entering the playoffs. So at first I'm thinking maybe they could take care of Minnesota in 5. I still think they win, but 6, maybe
Five.
even 7.
Yeah. Okay.
And LeBron's known, you mentioned as a whole the team, JJ, as like he likes to feel out game one. Even though he has a great record in game one, it's still generally his performance is kind of more of a feel out where he likes to figure out what he needs to do. And you feel like in game 2, he figured out like, okay, Luka can still dominate the scoring because LeBron's points are actually low for game 2. Normally if the first game he has less than 20, game 2 are huge for him. So you kind of expected a big performance, but he became the defensive anchor. I feel like in game 2, and it was like, Luka can score, and I just need to run the offense like almost like a Overwatch. I'm going to be on the on the Overwatch of the military here. I'm playing defense. I'm figuring out what's going on, tell the young people what to do, and not worry about really getting my points. So I feel more comfortable watching the Lakers and hearing Anthony Edwards, I know it's a small thing, say that he had never seen his own before was almost his quote or something like that. Was a little like, okay, but I think that was more of just not necessarily that comment, but like Minnesota still is young by comparison, and I think the Lakers going to have the advantage there. Shockingly, you'd almost think that they had the veteran coach. They've got the new coach, but like I feel like they're more calm, and Minnesota is probably going to be a little still all over the place. So I feel more confident with
Well,
Lakers.
I mean, look, it's the fact they got LeBron James on their team. If it was a Luca dominated team, which it still is, like statistically,
Mm,
still is performance wise, the leader of the shots, it's going to be Luca. But when it comes to like heated players, like Luca and Anthony Edwards are both guys that are going to be yelling at fans. There's a clip of Anthony Edwards saying his Johnson's a little bigger than a random guy in the stand and like this guy's making 400 million, I'm making 500 million, you got nothing. That just gets them going. Same with Luca. They're young, they're exciting. Anthony Edwards, even in the loss, had an amazing power slam. He's just still exciting. I mean, Anthony Edwards is still top 7 player in the league. Gotta be. I don't know if he's top 5, but he's borderline top 5. I think I'd still take Luca over him, but the fact that you got LeBron James, who's year 22 and looking like a young gazelle out there still. Game 1 he wasn't really bringing that power performance. He was feeling it out, but we've seen 22 years of this. We've seen him kind of coast a little bit, at least in his later years. Just sort of feeling it out. It's a feel out game. It's a 7 game series. It's not a sprint.
yeah.
Let's take our time. Let's figure things out. Dante DiVincenzo being the biggest difference maker. I think game one he was fantastic, and game two he really dropped the ball. Another New York Knicks guy, Julius Randle, one of the most inconsistent players,
Very
had
true.
a pretty terrible game one, but they didn't really need him. And then game two, he lit up in terms of shots. But the biggest difference for me was seeing Anthony Edwards. For me, that was the biggest difference in game one and game two, second from LeBron. Anthony Edwards got 9 assists game one and 0 in game two. He was trying to like do it himself. And it was really, you got to get the rest of your team involved. I mean, that's what LeBron gets demonized for, the fact that he doesn't just take it and gun to the hoop every single time. Like, he looks for the best pass. Same with Nikola Jokic. But just like you, I feel like it's still a Lakers series. For me, it's still a top 3 series. I got Denver Clippers #1. Then I got, what was it? Houston versus Golden State.
Yeah.
Got to be up there. #2 for me. And then Minnesota versus LA Lakers. That's #3. And the big debate in our chat, and we could kind of switch to that too, was the Knicks and the Pistons. Now, the Knicks and the Pistons, for me, it's 4. And that top 4 is way different than that bottom 4 for me. But those Knicks Pistons games have been gritty. They've been, the refs are letting them fight. And that's when you need Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. And Karl-Anthony Towns, flip it over there, had a fantastic game one, but then dropped the ball in game two.
Yeah.
Only got 10 points, maybe 6 rebounds or so. So how do you feel about that series so far?
I'll tell you, we didn't get a direct show right before the playoffs. So if I were to pick the brackets, hand to God, trying not to lie here, okay, I was going to go, honestly, chalk all the way, including Houston and Indiana. I had been a fan of Milwaukee when we spoke a couple of weeks before the playoffs, but with the no Dame Lillard, I was going to go Indiana. So I was honestly, if you were to say what was my pick, not unrecorded, I was picking chalk all the way, which includes Houston, where a lot of people like Golden State, and Indiana. But I'll give myself a tiny bit of credit because I remember when we spoke a couple of months before the playoffs, I was pretty high in Detroit, and I think I actually convinced you to raise them up. And I wish I had the balls to go with Detroit because I'm like, man, they're a fun team to watch. I was like, in my mind, I could see them upsetting the Knicks, but I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And now after 2 games, I'll say it now, 1-1, Detroit's going to win the series. I'm picking them right now, going forward to win the series. I started looking back, and the regular season they played each other 4 times. Detroit won 3 of those, and the one game the Knicks won was the 6th game of the regular season. At that point, Detroit was 1-5. They ended 4 games over 500. So you take that combined, from that point forward, they were 8 games above 500. Not amazing, but like a better team. If they win the last 3, momentum counts the regular season. They win the first 3 quarters of game 1, and then they give up that crazy 21-0 other run, and they win game 2. They basically won 7 of the 8 quarters, and 3 of the 4 games in the regular season. You start putting the pieces together, and they just match up better. They're just a better matchup. I don't want to say straight better team because then you have to look at regular season records. That does matter. But maybe there's just a better matchup. They stole home court, and I think Detroit's going to win. The Knicks look a little lost out there. I don't know. I mean, what's outside that 21-hour run, maybe outside a campaign, you're down 0-2. And on the road, and down 0-2 on the road is as close to down 0-3, it's a death sentence. Like, there's only, I think there's like 3 or 4 teams in history of the NBA that's come back from 0-2 where they had home court. They lost the first 2 home games. So the Knicks are in trouble right now. And they're in trouble with this massive amount of moves they made. They trading draft picks galore. They got Bridges, they got Towns. They make all these moves, and they might end up taking a step backwards from when they were the Villanova Knicks, which in some ways had a little more heart of the city. Like, oh, we love this Villanova Knicks. They're exciting. In some ways, actually taken it. They got big names and took a step back. So right now the Knicks season is terribly disappointing. It was looking like it was going to be disappointing in the second round. Should have been the same distance as last year. Now they don't even look like they're going to get out of the second round. But what do you do? What do you do for your Knicks?
Yeah, we keep talking that their second round exit destiny. And thinking about it, that's why I want to compare these series. 1, because they're so tight, because they're like on that bubble of excitement. But 2, because these are teams that, look, the Lakers lose game 1, the Pistons lose game 1, but then they come back and readjust and bring it. And Cade had pretty much the same performance. Tobias had a great first half in the first game, but dropped the ball in the second half. He's actually been their difference maker right now. And Jalen Duren, like big boy, like their leaders in points have been their leaders in rebounds as well. And they won game 2 because of the rebounds and because Miami Heat gave Dennis Schroeder to the Detroit Pistons. But yeah, we were keep comparing like the Grizzlies, the Rockets, and the Pistons, being like these teams are too young. There's too big of a gap. The Grizzlies were too much turmoil, and look, they clearly are not ready. The Thunder are just another level, but it's clear that 51-point lead or victory when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shot 4 for 13, the worst performance shooting of the whole season, first game of the playoffs, and they still put up 50 on them. They put up 131 points. Incredible, but that's a product of the Grizzlies' defense or lack thereof. But when it comes to the Pistons, they're super young, right? And I thought they wouldn't be ready. The Knicks have been in the playoffs. The Knicks have playoff performers. Jalen Brunson is somebody I could count on getting 30 points a game. But the Pistons, they were 14-68 last year. 14 wins. 15th in the East. The shitty East. This is a team, I had it written down on my phone. I wish I had it right now, but they haven't won a playoff game since 2008. Longest in franchise NBA history. Like, This is a team that just used to be one of those pinnacle franchises with Isaiah Thomas and then with Chauncey Billups. And they were like, oh, I wish we drafted Melo. I wish we didn't draft Darko Milicic. I wish we got Dwayne Wade, but obviously they still did fine with Rip Hamilton. But they could have been like dynasty level instead of just one. Definitely. And then all of a sudden we haven't seen them in years. Decades now. 2008's a long time ago. We're in 2025.
We're looking for our second recession.
Yeah. Basically. So yeah, I love Cade, but I'm like, who else did I got? If I don't trust Giannis with the Bucks, I'm not going to trust Cade with the Pistons. Like, same deal with what you're talking about. I laughed at you when you said the Bucks were one of the best teams over the next 5 years that go win a championship because there's so much turmoil. And I guess the Pistons, with new coaching, JB Bickerstaff, I believe, that's been the difference maker. That's clear. I mean, Cade, most improved player of the year candidate, could win it. Jalen Brunson just won clutch player of the year. Whatever that means. But look, he is clutch at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, I don't even know what they want from MVP. I don't know what they're ever going to want from clutch player of the year.
Yeah, MVP has gotten confusing. I think I said a couple months ago we spoke about Detroit. I'm seeing more and more of, and this is a compliment, not insult, of a poor man's Thunder. You got the point guard that can put up 30, and really the 1-star. You got a lot of youth, and like I said, a poor man's. But I see the pieces there that like, well, where were the Thunder 2 years ago? Probably about the same. So you say to yourself, okay, are they 2 years away from being there? And I'm not saying they're going to win 68 games in 2 years, but I'm saying they're basically where the Thunder were 2 years ago as far as young rising star point guard, scores a lot, not a second All-Star, up and coming, exciting to watch. So, who knows? Maybe in a couple of years, Detroit could be that, second best team in the East, maybe. Who knows? Competing for it to get to the finals. I could see them in a couple of years catching Cleveland, and then they're competing with Boston. And if Boston doesn't want to touch the second apron, I don't know if they're going to make some bad trades and get rid of some stars, but that's a different discussion. So I like what I see for Detroit. And I think this much, at this point, we know the Knicks record against Boston. I can't imagine Detroit could do any worse. So, at least the second round might be it might be more exciting than what I assumed. I was originally assuming Knicks get out, guaranteed lose to Boston like 5. Maybe Detroit puts up a better match, especially with Tatum's injury. Maybe second round could actually be a little exciting there.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, Tatum's got a right wrist injury. Like, no matter how long he's out, that's going to be a big problem. He's a big shooter. That's what it's all about. And they're relying on him in major ways. I mean, Peyton Pritchard got 6 Man of the Year, as you mentioned in the pre-podcast conversation. The Thunder's a good comparison, but the Thunder was more of a slow burn. They were 22-50 in 2020, then 24 wins, then 40 wins, 57 wins, 68 wins. Like the Pistons, the big shock, it's just that jump.
Yeah.
Like they're all of a sudden ready. Like the Thunder lost in the second round last year. They destroyed the Pelicans in the first round.
Mhm.
They're doing even better this year with the Grizzlies. And a lot of people are like laughing at us in the group chat, being like, "Are the Thunder really on this next level?" And I think they are. Now the West is pretty loaded. I mean, they're gonna have to go through the Clippers, the Lakers, who knows, the Timberwolves, maybe the Nuggets if they happen to squeeze by. They're gonna have to go through some big teams. Actually, who they have? Who they have
The
lined up?
Thunder's
Is
going to
it
get.
Nuggets
They're going to
Clippers?
get. Yeah, and that's a big
Okay,
advantage for them because that series looks like it's destined for 7, and the
it
Thunder
is.
are going to be done at 3 if that was possible. I know it's not, but like they're going to be sitting there. For them, they're already at April 29th. You're talking about. They're already thinking second round, relaxing, and it could easily be like 6 days off because Clippers Nuggets is looking like it's bound for 7. 6 is I think guaranteed at this point, and the Thunder looking like a sweep. So you could easily get 6 days off there. They could take a trip to Cancun and back in between instead of waiting to the eliminators. They could just be like take a quick trip there. The Thunder made me think of something. The NBA has had this play-in, which it got your heat in, and I'm sure you're happy about that. And I feel like the
Honestly,
play-in
don't
has
care.
been, yeah. See, you don't even care. So I feel like a lot of people are starting to turn on the play-in and saying that it's not really successful. It was an interesting thing. It started with the bubble year, and if you remember when it was originally announced, and I feel like it was like the fine print. It was said it was originally going to be a temporary. They're going to try it out. It wasn't supposed to be a permanent thing. And honestly, now that we're a couple years out, if I were to vote, I'd actually get rid of the play-in. I feel like it was a nice idea, but the playing games every year, 3 out of 4 to playing games seem to be blowouts. Same this year. There's like one good game out of it, a bunch of blowouts. And then the 8 seed, and I remember it was the 10 seed, so they got in. They're getting blown out anyway, so it's not like it really mattered that much. So I have a new proposal for the NBA. Get rid of the play-in and switch your format to the NFL. Let's do 7 seeds. Give the number 1 seed a bye, because I'd rather see the Thunder get a bye, and then they could do reseeding 2 through 7. I'm not saying single game elimination like the NFL, but I think the NBA should do top 2 seeds gets a bye, just like the NFL does. Then you do reseeding in addition. I'd like to see reseeding because this way NBA teams would stop trying to do that weird tanking. Not talking the bottom team tanking, like we've seen the last couple of years where you have like a 3 seed trying to drop to the 6 seeds because it's the better matchup for them or something. I know that, but I did play each other, but like a 3 to drop to 5, whatever it is. If you have reseeding, you fix that problem too. They go back to the year that LeBron was at Cavs and it goes to like a 4 seed or 5 seed and they sweep Toronto in the second round because they didn't care about seeding. But I bet LeBron at his older age, I'm not using it, I'm using an example because he is amazing. I'm not picking on him. Wouldn't the 1 seed be really tempting if you got a bye out of it? So give the 1 seed a bye, right? And then the winner of that can play the reseeding of the rest of the teams. And even if you don't reseed, the winner of that would play, the winner of the 3-6 basically. And then the 2 plays the 4. And there you go. There's your next round because the 8 seeds are just not competitive. I know a couple of them technically made the championship, the whole thing. We had the Knicks famous year. That was a lockout year. But like we don't need 8 seeds. Yeah, we have the Heat. But I really don't feel like we need 8 seeds. And on top of that, you add 2 more teams into the lottery. If you add 2 more into the lottery, that takes a little percentage away from the top teams. So maybe you could stop some of the bottom tanking too, because now you have more ping pong balls. So you're trying to say, listen, if you're in the lottery, there's more ping pong balls, so there's a less chance you get a first round pick. So try to get in the playoffs. So I would like to see the NBA go that direction. That's what I would love to see the NBA, because that's my entire opinion on the Thunder series is they should have a bye, which they basically do at this point of the Grizzlies, who are starting to embarrass the NBA. I think the Heat are at least trying. They're just so mismatched. It's not really there. The Grizzlies, I'm like, they have too much talent that it almost looks intentional. I'm like, what are you doing? You're just goofing around. You're constantly making like, gestures or doing things and guns with grenades. It's just you're becoming an embarrassment. Go home. It's like you're grounded if you were a student. Just go home.
I could go off about John Morant and how he's all of a sudden now my least favorite player to watch in the NBA. Like his lackadaisical type of play, and yeah, like the guns and the bombs and trying to be cool. And yeah, people are replicating it, But does that make it good? Does that make it a good, Is Adam Silver going to be happy with this? The answer is no. Uh, Yeah, the Heat were really fun. As an 8 seed, getting the Heat in the playoffs this year, it's fun. But me and my girlfriend started the show, The Haunting of Bly Manor, and we were watching that last night before.
Sure.
I was going to be like, "Hey, babe, I'm going to watch the Warriors, but we don't need to watch the Heat, even though that's my
Exactly.
team. But I want to watch the Warriors Rockets." Then all of a sudden, Jimmy Butler gets injured. I'm like, "Oh, damn, this is probably going to be a bad game."
Right.
And then the Rockets took over. But when it comes to the 8 seed, yeah, I think we need to push greatness more and not just expand this. Like college football expanding to a 12-team playoff, it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it more like exciting. You could put more pressure on the last week of the NBA season. Even with like the NHL, literally the last game of the season, it didn't matter. The matchups were completely set. With the last game of the NBA, unfortunately, it was on Masters Sunday, so everybody's got their eyes on Rory McIlroy trying to get his Masters title, trying to get the all 4 majors. That was drawing my eye more towards that too. Even though you had on my left screen Warriors Clippers, amazing game, probably one of the best games of the whole year. The NBA needs to do a lot of restructuring when it comes to scheduling. I could have a whole podcast with that. I think they don't avoid greatness enough. Have your own time. Like if you got the Masters Sunday, that's one day the whole year. You could avoid the best games being on that day. Like I know the overlap between golf and basketball probably isn't great, but you want casual fans to be able to watch these events.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say, "Hey babe, let's watch this game. This is going to be a really good game." And I make sure, and that's why I thought about the series in terms of hierarchies and rankings, because I'm always thinking like that, even since I was a little kid, trying to convince my friends, be like, "No, this is a 5-star game. This is a critical game. You really need to watch this." Like Champions League semifinals coming up. There's only 4 teams left in the whole nation. Even if you don't like soccer, still a huge, really important game. Biggest tournament of the entire world when it comes to soccer. When it comes to baseball, there's 162 games. The Mets and the Phillies are on, a couple days ago. I watched little bits and pieces of it, but it's not a high priority game. When it comes to the Masters, there's like 4 or 5 tournaments of the whole year, but the Masters is the cream of the crop. Roland Garros, the French Open with tennis, that's like for me the cream of the crop. That's coming up in a couple of months. Those are big events. Now I know they're not going to avoid like every single match. Look, when it comes to it, sports is on every day, pretty much. But all of a sudden, like Christmas is supposed to be a basketball holiday, right? The NFL takes over that. So maybe look, the NFL is going to do what they want. They're a big bully. They're going to push you around. But here we are, NFL draft day, and we're talking basketball because the playoffs are really intriguing. Now, we could prepare and talk NFL draft forever, but there's a lot of guys who are like really grinding really hard with this. And at the end of the day, I like more analyzing it afterwards, like seeing what they did, like, what did happen, what trades are going to happen. I don't follow college football enough personally to like know each player, like what they're doing. I know last time we spoke about the draft, Shedeur Sanders was the guy you wanted to draft. And I'm like, I don't know if you get him. Like he's right now, I think they have him ranked in terms of like the overall great players in this draft, like 34th in terms of talent. But he's a quarterback, so that's why you draft him super high. I'm thinking, might as well get Abdul Carter. Who cares about his personality? But when it comes to college football, like I know a handful of guys. I mainly watch the games, not about the players, about the organizations. Same with college basketball. I do like the draft. I'm a nerd when it comes to that. But the playoffs is why we watch. The playoffs is the hierarchy. Getting an 8 seed in, it's not competitive. It was instant, like Miami Heat, Thunder, Cavs, Grizzlies. Like you're at the bottom of my tier automatically. Celtics were a lock, Cavs were a lock, Thunder were a lock. Nothing could happen. I don't care who's getting injured. Even if Tatum and Brown get injured, the Celtics have enough to be able to beat Paolo Banchero.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there. I mean, yeah, the Miami Heat got in with the play-in, but I'd rather better regular season at the end of the year, more important games at the end of the year. These playing games aren't, to sort of wrap it back full circle, those playing games aren't 5-star games. They're on. I'm looking at the score on my phone, and I'm like, all right, every like 10 minutes, let me check. And the Cavs Heat, I saw this morning, they had an awful second quarter. Then you could go on. They had an awful second quarter. They let up a 16-point run basically by the Cavs, but they inched in closer at the end of the game. But still, I knew even when it was like a 3-point game, they're not going to win. Mitchell's going to hit the game-winning shot. Something's going to happen. They got Mitchell. They got Garland. They got Mobley. I mean, they stole Max Strus. I've gone on and on about how much I love the Cavs. I think we're going to speak a lot more about them next week when they're facing a harder opponent, potentially the Pistons, which could be wild. But yeah, I mean, I hate John Morant right now. Long story short, Triple J was going to be a top 20 player, but take it wherever you want to go, man.
So I'll say that I'm gonna end that by assuming you agree with the idea of like buys and reseeding, or at least one or the other. I definitely want reseeding and buys. From there, I think we could talk about Indiana for a little bit here.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like they're arguably the most boring good team in the NBA. I don't know, I don't want that to come out the wrong way, or maybe it's just because they're a small market. Like I feel like I feel like if you asked a lot of people, they wouldn't be able to tell you that they went to the conference finals last year. Like, really? That happened? Like, oh yeah. Because
Agreed.
I don't know. I swear, even the yellow, it's like mellow yellow color. It's like the boring color. If that makes sense. Even though I understand it's historic. It's like the Hoosiers, but I feel like even from their uniform to their arena, it's like doesn't pop. And to the players, like nothing really small market makes you just zoom in on that and be like, oh, I'm excited to watch them. But they got a deep team. At this point, it looks like they're definitely going to beat Milwaukee because, once you knew Dame was gone for the year, it was over. And even though he's back, as far as I'm concerned, he's gone because this is not 2K. It's not like a player comes back from injury and they're back. These players, his cardio shape is way down because you can't even run when you got the blood clog. You're probably rusty. So you have to realize it's not, oh, player back from injury, we put him back in. This is Dame going at 75%. And even with him, they were going to be pretty even. So you look at Giannis, not only they're down 0-2, but at least if they were down 0-2 and you said, they're doubling Giannis and he's only getting 20 points a game and maybe they could figure out a way to get the ball around. He's put in 40-point games and they're getting killed anyway. So there is no another gear. It's not like he needs to take it up. He needs to go from 30 to 40, even from 30 to 40. He put up 40. What's he supposed to do? You look, I saw a stat today. It said his last 7 playoff games for Giannis, he's 0 for 7, averaging 30 and 15. So there's nothing there, which leads to the more interesting conversation is possible trades for Giannis. Where did he go? Did the Bucks blow it up? Is it good for them to blow it up? Is it good for him? Like, what do you do if you're the Bucks? And I think at this point, as far as the series go, I feel like Pacers are bound to move on, and I give them a good shot. They're the 4 seed. They played a 1 the Cavs. I think the Pacers got a good shot to take down the Cavs, depending. I'm not saying they will, but they definitely got a shot at that. So yeah, let me see. Pacers possible against the Cavs. That could be a shorter topic for you, and then give me Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, look, Giannis is averaging 35 and 15. Not much more you could do. Dame Lillard hasn't even gelled with this team yet. He hasn't fit well. He's a good player, but he's dropping day by day by day. Giannis is still a top 5 player in the NBA. Probably third, if I really have to break it down. Jokic, SGA, then Giannis. I don't think they're good enough historically to be able to bring back that championship team again. They got Bobby Portis going off in that series, but it was all Giannis. It was Giannis 50 piece. That's why they won. He's still one of the best players in the NBA, but Chris Middleton being traded for Kyle Kuzma says enough. It says this team is tanking and they're scrapping at least. They're like, all right, Middleton's not healthy enough. We need somebody that could at least get 15. Like they need a Tobias Harris right now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like they're not there. The Pacers, they got an identity. They could put up 130 a night. Tyrese Halliburton just won with the players. 90 guys, 77% of 90 guys rated him most overrated player in the NBA.
I saw that.
See, that's like a Rudy Gobert Destiny Award right there, but he
Yeah.
won it. Now, is Tyrese overrated in my eyes? No, I don't think so. I think he's incredible. I mean, he's probably 19th, 20th. If I was going down like top 20 guys, like who's who's fighting. Basically, I was actually trying to figure out where does Kawhi land right now. Where's
Okay.
Kawhi in my eyes? Because this is a guy who, at his best, plays in the LeBron, Jordan, Hakeem, Shaq, like player efficiency rating. There's 8 guys in NBA history, by the way. I have this stat on my phone, but I could loosely talk about it. Uh, Low Post is back, which it's not called the Low Post; it's the Low Show. Zach Lowe, one of my favorite NBA writers, he's now with the Ringer. He was on Bill Simmons' podcast, and they were talking about Kawhi and his greatness. And Lowe brought up the fact that there's 8 players in NBA history that have a player efficiency rating of 24 or better, and have played 4,000 minutes or more. So basically, players that are consistently in relevance. Tim Duncan and Kawhi Leonard are tied with 24.3. KD has 24. LeBron is number 2. Jordan's number 1 with like 28.6. LeBron's like 27.5. Shaq's up there. Hakeem's up there. Kawhi is at his best a top 5 player we've ever seen. But he's also a guy who barely has 5,000 playoff minutes. In comparison, Jordan has 7,500. LeBron, I haven't looked it up, but LeBron, when it comes to these stats, that's why he's like one of the greatest ever. Like his longevity stats, his all-time statistics, it's insane. Kawhi's not healthy. What did he play this year? 18 games, something like that. But right now, if you zoom in on these 2 games, he is Michael Jordan right now. Like he is. I'm getting my spot. I'm making it. I'm fading away. I'm just getting the game winner. He won that game. James Harden tried his ass off to win game 1. Kawhi just wasn't there yet. Then Kawhi took over game 2 completely. Kawhi Leonard's stats last 2 games. He had 22 and 6 game 1. He shot 9 for 15. In game 2, out of this world. 39 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 15 for 19. There was like 6 minutes into the third, and he only missed 1 shot. This guy also got the game-winning steal. He locks up anybody he wants. He's one of the greatest defenders in the game. Everybody talks about his strength. Jokic is looking confused. Yeah, he's putting up triple-double stats. I mean, he's not even shooting enough right now. He got 8 for 16 in game 2. He was 12 for 24 in game 1. 16 shots is what SGA puts up when they're up 50. Like, they needed Jokic to do more. And he had the desperate heave at the end of the game because he's like, I just want it in my hands. I keep passing it. They're forcing him to pass it off. They're like, I don't care. Michael Porter Jr. could score. I don't care about it. The Clippers are doubling him in the post. They're forcing him to give it up. And he's going to make the right read. But if Christian Braun isn't going to be able to get you 20, they may not be able to win. Even though, look, they won by 2 in overtime game 1. They lost by 3. So they're right in it. But all of a sudden, the last thing I'll say is they started the series off like the Denver Nuggets were like minus 180 to win the series. Right now, it's Clippers minus 180. In our sports bet chat, I was like, all right, guys, like, bet on the Clippers. Like, Clippers are the hottest team in the West right now. Yeah, Jokic got the MVP, and that's why everybody's going to want to bet on him. But the Nuggets just fired their GM, just fired their coach. Like, Murray, he's been hurt a lot. MPJ never performs to his capacity. Even when they won the championship, he's like, yeah, that was easy. He's like, we barely tried. I'm like, maybe you barely tried.
All right, so final word. Who do you got win this series? You got Clippers?
I had Clippers early,
Clippers.
and
What do you got?
It's sort of a game 2 theme. The teams who won game 2, I'm loving. It's maybe recency bias, but game 1, it's a feel out. Like we'll figure that out. Game 2 is when you're performing. So those teams that are 1-1 right now, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Rockets, and the Pistons are the teams that are 1-1 that won game 2. And sadly, the Jimmy Butler injury is a huge reason why I'm kind of giving up on the Warriors because I don't know what's happening there. Draymond kind of pushed Ahmed Thompson into him, and then he just fell on his ass.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Warriors, and I mean, again, this is not 2K. These are real people, and it's like it's these games aren't played on paper; they're played in the court, which is hard to fall on. So stuff like age have to matter. On paper you can be like, oh, the Warriors are a better team; they should win the series. They won three out of 5 because they played the player game in the regular season, but look competitive. But when you're picking the series, and I was leaning Rockets in the series, I would have picked them pre-series, even though I'm thinking like 7. Something you have to add up. You could add up, well, Steph's the best player. You could add up defense. Something that does matter of age, and it's not a guarantee. And this is my issue with the Clippers. I know you're high on it right now. Is the Kawhi issue is like, you look at injuries and they do count, especially when you're talking how far they can go total. But just in the series, picking the Warriors is picking a team that's really their bench is really weak. That's arguably their worst part of their team is their bench is slim is being kind. And they really got 2 guys. You look at game 1, they win. You got Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. I think it was 37 and 38, something like that. So Jimmy Butler goes down, you lose about 50% of your offense, or I'll say some of the starters count. So maybe 40%, like 40% him, 40% Steph, and 20% the rest of the team. Basically, is roughly what they scored in the first game. So it was like 8 minutes in, you knew it was over. I'm sitting there. I was like, if I was a Warriors fan, I would almost be like, could we just go to the refs and just surrender? This way, we don't have to put minutes on Steph and Draymond. Like, we don't need to put the minutes on the older guys because we're going to lose this game. So, almost be like, all right, surrender early because why put, a 40-minute game on Steph that you're not going to win? And if Jimmy can't come back, the Rockets going to win this one handily. I don't think the Warriors can win a single game without Jimmy. It's not that Jimmy is like LeBron is peak or Jordan. It's just the Warriors are held together by shoestrings where it's like you lose one key piece like that on such a thin bench. This is not Boston. Without Jimmy, and we'll see how long he's out. Maybe he comes back. But even if he misses, say he only misses 2 games, I don't see how the Rockets don't win both. Now they're up 3-1, and you just need to win one more with Jimmy back. So that injury could be series defining. And most Warrior fans would say they won game 1. They'd be like, oh, we would have won the series. One game doesn't say that, but who knows? So that's too bad. It kind of ruins a little bit of that series to talk about. Back for the Clippers, they do look amazing, but the Clippers feel like playing that game hot potato when you're a kid. Like you just feel like between Kawhi on injury on one hand and James Harden's playoff, tumbles on the other hand, you're like, man, when they're cooking, they look like, well, they could just beat the Thunder in round 2, win the championship. But I look at the Thunder as having a huge advantage because if I'm the Thunder, I'm like, it's just a matter of time before either Kawhi gets hurt or James Harden turns into James Harden. And either way, I think that the Thunder can actually beat the Clippers relatively easily in the second round because not the Clippers today, but the Clippers that get to the second round, there's a good chance they're not going to be the same Clippers. Between James Harden mentally and Kawhi injury, who knows if that's going to be the same team. Give me a preview of second round.
Preview of second round. I mean,
your general thoughts, who you think are going to advance, how do you think it's going to play out? Obviously, we're projecting. You could take your runners like, oh, you think it's going to be Clippers, Thunders on one bracket. You think it's going to be Lakers, Rockets. Give me your quick second round
yeah, I
preview
mean,
of everybody.
as I just said, yeah, Clippers, Thunder, Lakers, Rockets, and then Lakers got to be able to beat the Rockets, and Thunder
Yeah.
probably going to beat the Clippers. But I think you got to give a lot of credit to the Clippers. I know you're worried about James Harden and his mental. I feel like he's hitting another level right now. And Kawhi did it with, in 2019 with the Raptors. He was able to do that with them, and they didn't really have much out of Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. Like, it wasn't much there. But Zubac and Norm Powell, like, they're 2 of the most underrated players in the game. I think the Clippers, they also got Ty Lue as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about the Clippers and Cavs for a while as like teams people have to actually give credit to. I feel like the Celtics already got that baked in, and the Thunder people are like, okay, let me give them some shot. And obviously with the Lakers, people are like, oh, you got 2 top 10 players, you got Luka, added to LeBron, they got Austin Reeves, their guy, which is all true. They're going to be great. Now, unfortunately, the Jimmy Butler injury, I believe, is tremendous. This team, the best defense in the game with Jimmy Butler added to their team. Yeah. Steph Curry all of a sudden was shooting more and more efficiently with Jimmy. Then all of a sudden, first game, Jimmy, 25 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals. This team also led the league in steals, led the league in assists, led the league in defensive rating with Jimmy Butler added. Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, as the 8 seed Miami Heat will tell you, this guy's on another level. Same with Kawhi. Kawhi in the playoffs, which is why I brought up the playoff player efficiency rating. This man's Michael Jordan in the playoffs. More
Mm,
realistically, Tim Duncan. But still, Tim Duncan in the playoffs? Come on. Amazing.
yeah.
Incredible. You got to give credit to this guy. You got to give credit to the possibility that they could beat the Thunder. Now, the Thunder are on a whole nother level after getting Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein this year. They were already a
Mhm.
number one seed last year. Then they added the two best offseason moves.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to game twos, with the Pistons winning, the Rockets winning, that was rebounding.
Yeah.
When you break it down, the
Um,
Warriors had
defense
33
travels.
rebounds. The Rockets had 47. The Pistons had 48 rebounds. The Knicks had 34. Same game, pretty much. I know, completely different games, different scenarios. But outside of last night's game with the Rockets Warriors, outside of that last bit of the first quarter, it was pretty much a tight game. And just like you're saying with the Pistons Knicks, outside of that 21-0 run, that shit
Mhm.
was tight.
Yeah.
And game two with the Knicks, that was super tight as well. There was like a little run in the first quarter by the Pistons. Same deal with the Rockets. They were fighting because they were behind. They were desperate. They're like, we can't go 0-2. But if you actually do drop the ball 0-2, like those teams that are 2-0, that's done. But those 1-1 games, like the winner of game two, has to have a large percentage. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think in reality, the West is so confusing. Like, yeah, I think it could easily be Lakers Clippers, like it should have been in the NBA bubble. But the Clippers just didn't want to play. They didn't want to be there. And the Clippers are that kind of team that they're like, when they're hot, they're hot. When they're cold, they're ice cold. And I feel like this team is running hot right now, and you can't bet against
Very
them.
hot.
The Nuggets, Jokic is trying. The fact that he puts up 29, 10, and 12 and still isn't enough, like,
Yeah, that's
that's
considered like a bad game. Like, well, he had a 7 turnovers, I think it was, or whatever. Like I
so
saw a lot of
exactly.
people
So
like
that
he
was the
played
key.
bad, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying he should be like you can't criticize him because we've always criticized Star. We criticize LeBron forever. You should be allowed to criticize and say, yeah, he did have the last couple possessions. The fourth quarter was not great for him, but it is funny to look at that stat line and be like, whew, what a bad game for Jokic. He did not show up in game two. Where was he?
Where was he? Yeah. 26, 11, and 10 in a loss. But 8 for 16, like you're only shooting 16. You need more assists for him specifically. I mean, this team, what they give him, I don't even know. We don't need to go through the stats with that. But look, it's still my favorite series. You still, so with that specifically, you think the Nuggets win still?
Wow, this one is my my brain says that the Clippers win, but I'm gonna take the Nuggets because
Okay.
I feel like the Clippers, like I said, are a little bit of hot potato where I feel like something's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of in there. It's also you could even say being a Clipper as a franchise, they got to the conference finals I think one time in history. I noticed only the first round. Like
Oh,
you
that's
mentioned the bubble year where it's like that was the one year they're all healthy. It's like with they lose when they're up 3 games to 1. Like the Clippers are kind of a little bit of that. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. It's like a black cloud over the franchise, where it's like I just kind of feel that in a 7 game series, I have a hard time trusting the Clippers has a brand, and maybe them winning will make me think different of the brand. It's like you ever think of a brand like I, I remember when, like Kia Motors first came to America, it was considered like low level car. Now they make great cars. I need a minute here, and then like Honda, I took out the Genesis, and now that's like really amazing cars. And they're amazing cars now. When they first came over, it took decades for people to kind of get over. I feel like I need to see more from the Clippers before I can wipe off the dirt on that logo and say, wow, you know what? They are a successful franchise. They just seem too much destined for something's going to go wrong for them. That in a close series, I'm going to have to go Denver. And I really can't give you a great logical reason because the truth is, the more logic side of my brain is saying, no, the Clippers are a better team. They're hot. They're going to win. I'll take Denver with, 1 toe down instead of 10 toes down. I'll put my toe in that water and say
yeah, your pinky
Denver.
toe sitting
I
on
got
it.
my little pinky sticking in there, just in the bathtub. It's a little hot, and I'll go in that hot bathtub to say that Denver pulls out in 7. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say they do. But it's more of the Clippers. I'm relying on the Clippers to lose it. You ever say who did they win it or the other team lose it? I'm somehow expecting the Clippers to lose it more than Denver to win it.
Yeah.
So
Nah, you're
that's what
constantly
I'm going.
talking like that. You're just waiting. You're like, yeah, Kawhi's not gonna be healthy. James Harden's not mentally there. Like that's all I need to know. I'm not gonna believe what I see until like they actually do it. Um, yeah, I mean the Rockets are kind of that way too historically. I mean they're 0-4 versus the Warriors. Now different players, completely different players, but now they got guys like Alperen Sengun and Jalen
Mm-hmm.
Green that have never been in the playoffs. Amen Thompson, second year guy, one of the best defenders in the game, first year in the playoffs. But they're doing it now. Can they do four wins? Like, I think the Warriors are dysfunctional enough currently,
Mm-hmm.
with the way they are, that they could definitely do that. But when it comes to them being the Lakers, no, no, I
Yeah,
don't think so.
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think so. I think JJ Redick's going to figure out a scheme to make it work. And Amen Thompson, you could be amazing, but you're not going to be able to lock
Mhm.
up Luka. Like you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to do that. Um, so I feel a lot better about the Lakers making it to the finals than I do with the Clippers or the Thunder, actually. Nuggets included. I mean, the Nuggets Clippers is my number one series for a reason. It's that one I said bet on the Clippers mainly because they were the big underdog. Not
Mhm.
tremendous, but minus
So
180
you're
for the
getting some
Nuggets. I'm
bad,
like,
getting the best value
yeah, take
yeah, you
the
you can
take the
bet Celtics in the
Clippers.
first round, they pay back nothing. That's the best value. I think what's interesting is that's your favorite series, and I think you're right, that's the best
It is.
series objectively. I would also argue that the winner of that series has the smallest chance to make the NBA Finals of any team there.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
versus
of
the
the
Thunder,
road that
yeah.
is getting well the entire road, then the Thunder's probably followed by assuming say the Lakers and then what maybe Boston like their road, that road of any matchup, including the East, I'm saying that the winner there is basically guaranteed cannot win the finals because you just can't see a scenario how that team can then get past the Thunder. And if they could get past that, then the Lakers and they get past that, say Boston's a favorite in the East, you take any other team, including the East, nobody has a road
That's
that
true.
tough. So like I don't think Houston has a great chance at all. But with Jimmy Butler going down, their first round actually might be easy. It might end up being
Yeah,
eight. Maybe they win in five with no Jimmy. So, you look at people's roads and you say to yourself, they have the most difficult path by a mile. You look at the Lakers. A lot of people like the Lakers because their path is looking a little easy right now. You're saying, all right, Minnesota, maybe they can't hang with them. And if they get Houston in round two because of the Jimmy Butler injury, that benefits the Lakers. Maybe they could beat Houston relatively easy. No offense to Houston. I mean, they could end up with a relatively easy path. That's just the other end of other end of the coin. So you look
mm,
at the brackets, and that's what makes the West so much fun is these matchups and the brackets. You're like, oh, they could end up with these very easy paths. Um, I want to touch on the one we didn't cover at all. Just give me big picture Jason Tatum. So I feel like everybody kind of agreed. I know you were pretty high in the cast that the Celtics were pretty heavy favorites to get out of the East. But with Jason Tatum's injury, and it's not like he's going to miss the entire playoffs, but we don't know how his wrist is going to affect him. I wouldn't be surprised he sits the entire Orlando series because if they're up 2 games to none, if they don't need him,
might
let
as
him
well.
rest.
Yeah.
How does that open it up for the East? Excuse me, at least a
I
little
mean,
bit. Like open a window for say the Cavs, something like, hey, well, if Jason Tatum's he'll play about a Cavs, that'd be the third round, but maybe he's a little off. Or if you're thinking, say the Knicks, I know they haven't beat the Celtics this year, but they've had some competitive games. The last game they played, I think, went to overtime in the regular season. And or if the Pistons come out and they could say, well, if we could get a Tatum that's playing, say, his first game back at rust, maybe we steal game one. He's a little rusty. Does that open it up, or is it still the Pistons conference to win? Is it still like what? Give me a pie breakdown. Pistons, Celtics chance of winning the East. What do you got for me?
so Paolo Banchero is averaging 34, 10, and 5 in this
Okay.
series. He's showing up.
Yeah.
He's like, is he going to be top 20? That's sort of my projection with him. Now, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Their loss with Suggs, they're done. Even if they were fully healthy, they're not beating the Celtics. Even with no Jason Tatum, they're not beating the Celtics. But when it comes to that next round, Knicks versus Pistons, the way
Mm-hmm.
it's going, that's a 7 game series. That's a rock fight. I mean, even the Magic are fighting hard. The fact that like Kristaps Porzingis was like his head was bleeding, and that's what I was worried about with the Warriors Rockets, where I was like, hey guys, like you may think Steph's got this loaded. Everybody's saying he can't win 5 championships. Like I'll give him all the credit in the world. I love Steph. I love Draymond. I love Jimmy when it comes to playoff performers. But the fact that I know you asked about the Celtics, but the fact
Yeah.
that Stephen Kerr or Steve Kerr. I don't know why I call him Stephen Kerr, but Steve Kerr on the sideline
Playing
yesterday
professional,
was
yeah.
like, well, we got Jonathan Kuminga. I have all faith in him that he's going to win it and take over Jimmy's, position. He's going to bring athleticism and defensive rebounding. Like, bro, you benched this guy. He didn't play a playoff minute. Like, he wasn't
Yeah.
going to play if Jimmy didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Celtics, they are deep. They are super deep. The fact Pete Pritchard 6 man a year, maybe I disagree with that, but their bench is really good.
Yeah.
It's very clear they got a lot of talent on that team. It's not just the
Mhm.
Tatum Brown combo. Kristaps, if healthy, that's that kind of situation. Kawhi, like he's one of the best players in the game.
Yeah. Derek White, like not just the bench is deep, and then even the starters are they never it's like all the starters play 80% because they're so good, so they share. So it's like you pull Tatum out, and it's like, can Porzingis average 3 more points a game, and can
Yeah,
White average 3 more points a game, and can Brown? Yeah, they could all easily add three. That's 9 points right there, and they could probably add more than three. But I'm saying because they generally almost holding back just to share it the ball.
yeah.
So the bench is deep. The starters aren't even necessarily going at full potential every game because they're just passing or being up a lot. But
Yeah.
does
But
this
I
open the
mean,
window for the Cavs really? And I guess maybe it'd be Knicks or even Pistons to somehow overtake the Celtics. You got the Celtics still coming out east.
the Knicks don't feel like they have a good identity right now. I mean, they're it's a 2K type of lineup, as you were saying.
Okay.
Like they got talent, sure, but it doesn't flow well together. Brunson's solid. Brunson will give you 34, 35 points a night. But Bridges had a good game too. Cat had a good game one. OG's gonna lock up your best guy. But still, with him locking up Cade's still able to get 33 points last game. Um, Now, the Pistons, I don't really have a lot of faith in them getting to the conference championship, but
Gotcha.
yet it happens all the time. Like we see the Miami Heat getting there, we see the Pacers getting there. Like in the East, like sometimes outliers happen. All you got to do is win 2 series to get there. But I still think it's Cavs Celtics. Yeah, I'm not gonna budge on that until some major
Okay.
news happens. And specifically for the Celtics, they literally just did it. If anything, it's almost a blessing in disguise because it takes miles off of his legs. I know he's young,
Mhm.
sure, but it impacts everybody. Like, doesn't matter how young and athletic you are. If I'm only going to play, every other week, I could bring a lot more performance. I mean,
Mhm.
my cardio is not going to be able to be there, that kind of thing. But you could bring a lot more to the table, if you're rested. Like, there's a reason why Greg Popovich rested Kawhi, rested Timmy, rested Tony, Manu included as well. Like, and actually, Joe Mazzulla kind of reminds me of Popovich. Like, very different styles, but they're both military guys. They
Mhm.
both are like, I mean, Mazzulla is kind of like, he'll yell at you. Like, when Tatum was
Yeah.
hurt, he's like, get up,
Yeah.
get the F up. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna
I
scream
was
at
thinking
you
that you
and
said military. It's like get off the ground.
yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
don't be a B.
Yeah.
But look, Cavs, the Heat actually played really well last night. I was like, okay, I like it. Now they were sort of trying really hard for the shot. The Cavs just move the ball so well. It is that kind of Spurs like momentum where like
Mhm.
Mitchell is on another level right now. I don't know where to rank him. Like I was like, is he top 10? And then I listed it out and I had him 11. Now, but maybe I'm too high on LeBron still. I still got LeBron top 10.
Oh, for sure.
But Mitchell is he's ready. Mobley is also he's like ranked 13th right now for me. That team is really good. Now with the Tatum injury, I think that impacts the conference finals more.
Yeah.
They need him versus the Cavs. The Cavs are ready. Cavs are ready
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason why when before the playoffs started a week ago, Thunder, Cavs, Celtics, huge gap, and then the
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah.
There were comparing it to hockey. There were I wrote down I think 13 teams. Maybe that's over exaggerating. At least 8 that had a better odds than the plus 1300 the Lakers had, and Lakers were fourth. So it was a big gap. Like with hockey, it's almost. I mean, this is kind of how it works with hockey. It's like anybody can win type of
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
with basketball, it's like, all right, who are the top teams? And we're not giving the Rockets that credit as a 2 seed. Doesn't matter what they do versus the Warriors.
Yeah.
But I'm impressed by Paulo Banchero. I mean, they
Very.
they almost beat the Celtics
Mhm.
in game two. Now, I still thought the Celtics were destined to win that game. Same with the Cavs versus the Heat, but I've been incredibly impressed by Tyler Hero this year. Now,
Yeah.
he is the hero too often, but he's relied on to be the Donovan Mitchell. Like that's
Mhm.
the problem. He's not 11th in the NBA, but he's a guy that was in trade rumors for a while. Not to go to Miami Heat, but like everybody's like, yeah, put him in trade, put him in the trade. And the
Yeah, I
fact that
remember
they
that for
like
a long
held
time.
on to them, he is a Miami Heat type of guy. Like he almost is born to be on a boat. And I like a lot of pieces they got. Obviously, losing Jimmy sucks. Like it's a big hit. If we're getting playoff Jimmy Butler, like they could actually beat the Cavs. Like I would have a whole different conversation if they were like, oh yeah, we had a lot of injuries, and that's the main, I guess, nick in the armor of what you're talking about with getting the instant buy. But at the same time, we really shouldn't like give teams credit or a championship like option. Can you actually win the championship? We're giving you a piece of the playoff puzzle. Like we're giving you a seat at the table with an 8 seed. Like you're the
Yeah.
15th best team in the NBA right now. There's only 30 of us. The
Mhm.
fact that we have a NBA play-in tournament, the fact that we're getting, you know, more than half the teams in the
Yeah.
playoff kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
count the
why
play-in. That's 20 teams, 2/3. Miami was record-wise would have been the 20th team, the 10th in the East. Like,
you can't give them the opportunity. I mean, the Heat should have to fight. They're a team that they're like, yeah, I don't care as much about the regular season. Like every year, pretty much, even when they were incredible in 2011 and 12, 13, 14, that run. Where bringing it back to what you were talking about with the Nuggets Clippers, that's kind of what the Mavericks had to go to that year. The championship year in 2011, they went through KD and Russ. They went through a lot of great teams going back to that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think Celtics win the championship still? Is that kind of where you're at right now?
well, I've been really, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but the Thunder have been impressing me so much that my stock's been growing on them a lot at this point that I to give the Celtics a slight advantage because, man, if I was the Cavs, I would be wishing I was playing the Celtics in the second round, where I could take more advantage of Tatum's wrist because where the Celtics are lucky, like, oh, Knicks Pistons probably going to go 7. Like that gives Jason Tatum a long break, and then if we could take care of them in the next round, they're like, oh, we're a month away from seeing the Cavs. That gives Jason Tatum a long time to get that rest. It could be a completely full strength by them. If I'm the Cavs, I'm like, God damn, I wish I was playing the Celtics in the second round where I could really take advantage of that injury. I have to think Tatum's basically 100% by the conference finals. Healthy Celtics are going to beat the Cavs to me. So I have to give them the advantage because they're the team that I feel is so confident in them getting there that that's half the battle. Where even though I really liking what the Thunder are doing, I still could see them being upset by somebody. So that for that reason, I think I have to say Celtics are still to me the favorite. But man, the Thunder are. I know they're the best record in the NBA, so it's weird to be like to say how is a 68 win team now impressing you, but they are actually now impressing me more than their regular season impressed me. I'm like, okay, wow, this is really impressive.
Yeah, it's that thing you always say where you have to give it almost to the East because their road to the semifinals is
Hmm.
that much easier. The fact that the Thunder are gonna have to go against Jokic or Kawhi, like that's a big gap between that and the Pistons, or that and Tyrese Halliburton. You know, so I hate to say it, but I guess a repeat is what I would pick.
Hmm.
But like I'm excited that I don't even feel that strong about it. Like the Celtics are definitely the best odds right now. Um, I guess I should pick the Cavs with how much I've loved the Cavs, but the Celtics just have a little bit more. They have a little bit more playoff experience as
Yeah.
well. Um, Donovan Mitchell just it's almost so I like the Celtics so much because they have Missoula, because they kind of have lackadaisical mindset type of guys outside of like Jaylen Brown seems to be a gritty man, but Mitchell, so the fact that you won, like it's so hard to repeat, right? The fact that they won last year almost makes it less desirable to win this year. It's just natural, unless you're
Mhm.
like Kobe Bryant, who like just
Yeah.
sneaks three-peats. Like Shaq's the type of guy to be like, I'm gonna dominate. I'm gonna be incredible, but like, I'm too good for this. Like, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna dominate you. I don't need to like have that energy. Like the Cavs are filled with guys who are hungry. They've
Yeah.
lost. They've gone through it. That's why the Pistons and the Rockets, they haven't lost. They haven't done anything yet. They haven't gone through that yet. The Thunder have lost. The Thunder have gone through it. The Thunder are
Mhm.
hungry. So I give them a lot of credit too with that. And yeah, I'm gonna pick them over the dysfunctional Nuggets, or like you said, the potential of a Kawhi injury and James Harden mental breakdown. Um, so it's probably going to be Thunder Celtics, and sadly, that's exactly where I was before the season even
Uh-huh.
started. But at least it's exciting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else
Uh,
you want to pinpoint before we wrap this up?
I think Boston has one other nice little thing going for them. You mentioned it's hard to repeat because there's that little bit of natural pullback. You mentioned like Joe Mazzulla during the offseason, and this you feel like never happened for Boston. You had their best player in Tatum have the Olympics where he has to ride the pine, so he's basically kind of shunned as well. You won the championship, but you're still like eighth best player. So you could get a
Mm-hmm.
little chip on your shoulder because sometimes, as the winner, you don't have that. And then you have your second best player in Brown for like, I don't know, it feels like the fifth year in a row be thrown around in possible trade rumors still. Of like, well, we still might want to trade you. So, the media actually did them a favor because it gives them a little bit of a kick in the ass, a little bit
Sure.
of a God, you know what? They still don't respect us. So that's an advantage for them.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like I agree with you at this point. I'm Thunder Celtics. The playoffs are, awesome. I'm happy Tatum is not done for the year, but his injury actually adds a little excitement for the fans, so that's good for that's good for us.
Yeah, true.
Um, you look at Celtics, and it's funny because we're in agreement now that they're favorites and should make it to the finals when their best, not their second best player gets injured, and you take yourself, who else could handle that? Because we also agree that the second best player, for example, on Golden State, and I know their
Oh
17
God.
goes down and they're done. So,
No
Celtics,
team.
it's
Oh,
best team,
Shay.
and they're still going. Yeah. I
Last
mean,
point
I think
I
they could
want to make
probably beat the
actually.
Grizzlies without Shea, but
Yeah.
yeah, you'd say no chance. The Celtics, like best player injured, still favorites for the finals. Golden State, and they're not the best team, but they're a decent team. They were favored in series, second best player down. Okay, this might be gentleman's sweep now. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
want to talk about the depth, and that's the advantage of being a good team, and you deserve to have the easier opponents. These are advantages. We don't take the NBA regular season that serious, but some advantages in the seeding stuff is you can withstand an injury, maybe, and that would be the advantage. Say if you were, I know Celtics for 2 seed, maybe you got the bye, then guess what? That injury can't happen because it's less games played. I know it's more like a football thing. They talk about the bye because it's a more violent game, but one less game means less chance for injuries. NBA playoffs is more
Exactly.
physical, so injuries are more prone in the playoffs. So I'm a big proponent of the idea of a bye because I'm like, well, not only do you not have to play, but you're saving possible injuries. And I mentioned Kawhi, we see Jimmy Butler, that Jason Tatum. That's three big stars in the first
Yeah.
round. Um, Kawhi's not injured, I was talking about, and so I feel like that's a huge bonus if you could say, oh, well, your reward is a bye, you don't have to worry about being injured.
Especially with the plan, there's not a big advantage of getting the one seed over the two seed. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I guess you get game seven in the conference finals. That's your advantage. But you're
Mhm.
right. There should be like way more of an advantage. It should be similar like the NFL's got it. And it makes sense. And we don't need to watch the Chiefs or the Eagles like face like whoever's going to scrap into the playoffs. Even though with football, it's any given Sunday, anything can happen. It's one game. With the
Yeah.
NBA, it's a 7 game series. The fact
Mhm.
that you win 51 by 51, like, come on, that should at least count for two.
Yeah.
Like,
Like a
there's a
forfeit.
mercy rule for a reason with
There's got to be a
basketball.
mercy rule somewhere.
Yeah, like this series is over. It was over before it started. Like, I can't argue the fact that the Miami Heat, yeah, if the Miami Heat had Jimmy Butler, I would give them a decent shot at beating the Cavs, sure.
Mhm.
But I can't just like. They also shouldn't have, if they had that bad of a regular season,
Mhm.
they shouldn't have
Sure.
an opportunity to win the
And
championship,
I
the top team in the
sure.
league. And you don't even have to be top 15 to make the playoffs.
And you mentioned the Heat and when eight seed Butler, I guarantee you, if they're only 17 and made the playoffs, then Jimmy would have gone into playoff mode in the last 10 games and would have made sure Miami got to the 7th seed.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like, well, what about an 8th seed? You bring up Miami 8th seed. That Miami team would have tried a little harder to be a higher seed if the cutoff was at 7.
Look, I think we had a fantastic podcast. I definitely got emotionally heated
Great job.
about
Get
John
Adam Silver
Morant.
on the phone. We got this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, my mic wasn't working, my headphones weren't working, but we just jumped in. It doesn't matter. Dave's been back. Dave's been, running through Daredevil, Born Again, Invincible season 3, and Severance season 2. So there's plenty of Nerdy Bunch podcast to watch.
Yes.
When we will be back next week for another NBA breakdown. I think we're gonna talk a lot more about the NFL draft next week. If you're okay with that, I know you're a big
Yeah, I'd
football
like
fan.
that's the Giants got a big night. Everybody says the draft starts at 2 kind of. That's the team everybody's watching, which is fun and also miserable because it's fun that everybody's watching your team. It's miserable that your team's in a spot. But
There's a reason why the last podcast I was like, let's break down the Giants. Not
yeah.
just because you're a fan. Like, I think they're the most intriguing pick.
Pray for me. Pray for a quarterback. I can't do another year with a bad
Uh,
quarterback. I don't care if it's a good player. I need a quarterback.
Honestly, as your enemy, I guess, I'd be happy if you got a quarterback. I'd be happy if you got Shador Sanders. Like, I
Okay.
want the Giants to be good, but to be honest, I think they'd be instantly good with a guy like Abdul Carter.
Okay.
And he's like almost prototypical Giants, you know?
Yeah.
And they're built on the defensive line already. But it's one of those things. Do you make your strength literally the best in the league? Or do you try to fill gaps? And I think where they go wrong in the first round is where, similar to one thing I'll say. So somebody was talking about the Seahawks getting a grade F in 2012 when they got Bruce Irving, Bobby Wagner, and Russell Wilson. And they were saying, like, well, they don't need Bruce Irving. They're already strong there. Russell Wilson's clearly not going to work with this style of offense. Pete Carroll doesn't know what he's doing. He's too old. Too old. 13 years ago. He's still coaching, by the way.
Looks good.
But so don't pay too much attention to draft grades, guys. And I think the worst thing you could do in the first round, where there is so much talent, is draft with need. Get the best player. Just get him. All right, Nerdy Bunch audience. Thanks for coming back. We'll be back next week. And as always, Scotty,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.